hope we're having a good summit so far. Can I get a yes? Thank you very much. So the topic is modern cinema business in Nigeria at 20. And what we were trying to quickly go through in a few slides is to share with you the journey so far as Nigerian cinema business is concerned. The highs, the lows, and what we think the future holds for the cinema industry. Still don't have the outline? By the way, courtesy of Nine Entertainment, we'll share the slides to you and we'll share it through the NiFS email database, I believe. So very quickly, okay. All right. So please, let's have the next slide. That's what we're looking at. And very quickly, we're going to look at the evolution of Nigerian cinema. We're going to look at the highs, the dawn of modern cinema, a new era of cinema expansion. I'm going to read from here. The birth of Nollywood in modern cinemas, box office breakthroughs, and trust me, we're going to go through them very quickly. The year we recorded a series of firsts, technological advancements or breakthroughs in the Nigerian cinema business, international recognition and growth, pandemic effect on cinemas, which is a thing, which something has happened, and sometimes we don't talk about it enough. We don't look at that impact on the wider film industry, the post-pandemic patterns, the lows, challenges faced, economic and political setbacks, streaming wars and their impacts, and what the future holds. Thank you. Really helpful. Thanks. I want to give a great credit to my colleague, Ondofa, all the way from Abuja, who helped us in putting the presentation together. Thank you for doing this. Thank you very much. Okay, so, like I said, I'm going to breeze through this. Modern cinema in Nigeria, courtesy of our great pioneers, Silverbird Group. Silverbird Cinema Galleria was opened in 2004, and 20 years in May, I believe. We've now had modern cinema going, returned into Nigeria. And we term it modern cinema going because we're able to track data, track box office numbers as of that time. And we've kind of broken it down into key sections between 2004 and 2008, where we saw Silverbird open in the Galleria, and then a few other cinemas happened in 2008, and Genesis Deluxe Cinema was born then. We also had pioneering films in 2009 and 2010. Kunle Afolayan's The Figurine was one of the commercially released films of that era. And then we also had Stephanie Okereke, I believe, Through the Glass. One point to note, between 2004 and 2008, we had what we called the 35mm print, or 35mm print, which was a very, very expensive medium of cinema exhibition at the time. It meant that a lot of the Nigerian films couldn't get exhibited because they were very, very expensive to show. Therefore, we were only beholden to Hollywood productions for a long time. But as we're getting into 2009, 2010, with the introduction of digital cinema distribution and exhibition, more Nigerian films started coming into cinemas. Between 2011 and 2013, there was an expansion and growth of cinemas. I think it's worthy of note that between 2004 and 2009, or 2010, there was about 6 cinemas. So we didn't see that much growth in 2010. Okay, next slide. Sorry, I'm trying to get used to the Okay, to the screen. I was wondering where. I want to go back one slide. It's really. Can I speak to you? Can I talk to you guys to help with the slides rather than me doing it? Yeah. Sorry about this, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I'm ready. So let's go to um, slide 5. Okay. All right. Can you hear me now if I give the signal? All right. Next slide. All right. Yeah, this one is fine. So the dawn of modern cinemas. Okay, we'll go with this one. A new era of cinema expansion. What I was going to say with the slide that just went off was 2004, we had Silverbird Cinemas come into the picture. 2008, Genesis Deluxe Cinemas come into the picture. And then 2006, sorry, between 2004 and 2008, there was New Metro Cinemas that then ended up being changed to Genesis Deluxe Cinemas. 2008, we had Ozone Cinemas in Yaba. That's between 2004 and 2010. Then we had a new era of cinema expansion. And that time, in 2013, we had less than 15 cinemas. 2016, we now got to almost 40 cinemas, courtesy of financial interventions by a private equity firm for Film House and Bank of Industry for the whole sector. And then next slide, please. And then we now had the birth of Nollywood in modern cinemas. Again, between 2004 to 2010. This is another section where we had Through the Glass by Stephanie Okereke. We had Figurine by Kunle Afolayan and EJ The Journey, bringing together Omotola and Genevieve Naji in 2010. That became the highest grossing film, I believe 66 million grossed in 6 or 7 sites. At the exchange rate at that time, I think that was probably about $400,000 at the time for 6 or 7 sites. That's when we started to see indication that local films could do well at cinemas. I'm not too sure of the number of tickets sold then, but at an average ticket price of less than 1,000 naira, it would have been over 60,000 tickets sold at the time from 6 or 7 locations. So that's when we started getting indication that, you know what, there is a business here, not just for Hollywood films, but for local films. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. So, box office breakthroughs. We're moving fast past this. I'm making sure that I want to make sure I'm not boring anyone. But please, one of the things we talk about when discussing with filmmakers is just having, comparable box office information, understanding the journey we've made, understanding the impact of cinema and why we keep talking about cinema. We keep talking about it from a data standpoint, from a real business standpoint, as opposed to the other forms of monetization where sometimes it is very subjective. There's no real science to it. With cinema, the numbers are very clear. For those that have released films in cinemas, you will see everything by ticket price, by the show times, by the various locations, by the various ticket prices. It's very granular. So having in-depth understanding of how it works in the cinema industry is very, very good for a filmmaker's development. So here we just have highlights of the big box office breakthroughs, and you can see them. 2010, EJG Journey, 2014, 30 Days in Atlanta, which grossed over $1 million at its time in 2014. 2016, 2017, The Wedding Party, which has become an iconic film, released in over 25 countries, The Wedding Party 2, particularly. Omogeto, Battle on Booker Street, A Tribe Called Judah, all instructive films that have become highest grossing films since the pandemic. That's what is very instructive about these three titles. Let's move on. The next slide is about the year of the first. In 2016, we had major breakthroughs with the selection of Nollywood films at the Toronto International Film Festival. I think that was a very big breakthrough year for Nigeria. We had 8 films selected for that festival, and that's when it now really came to light that our films had done something in terms of quality filmmaking. And then, of course, The Wedding Party's record in 2016, and then in terms of direct theatrical distribution with studios, being able to distribute their titles directly into Nigeria. Film One had a first in that year, 2016. Prior to that, it had always been going through East Africa or South Africa. Next slide. Again, in terms of the cinema industry, another thing that maybe we do not showcase or say enough, and even though we experience it, I think we have to give kudos to a lot of the companies that have invested in the technology to make the cinema business viable. We had, in 2016, the first IMAX, and in 2018 or 2019, I believe, premium formats were also invested into by Genesis Cinemas with ScreenX and Silverbed with 4DX in multiple locations. And in 2019, the second IMAX as well was invested in by Film House Cinemas. Next slide. So we've also had international recognition and growth. We just mentioned the Toronto International Film Festival in 2016, the Nigerian International Film Summit, in which you are in its, I believe, 7th edition. The first edition was held at the American Film Market in Los Angeles in 2017. Again, I think that deserves a lot of credit. Highest attendance, believe it or not, we've recorded 5 million tickets sold in this cinema sector. I think in at the time, less than 60 sites. 5 million admission tickets we got in 2018. And then it declined very little, it declined a bit in 2019. We had ComScore. ComScore are the world's largest box office measurement site that came to Nigeria as well to verify and validate all our data. They came in 2018. With the only trade body for cinema in terms of cinema business in Africa was formed, CAN. We have the chairman here. I believe he has a presentation too. So CAN was incorporated in 2018. And then the industry was also recognized as the emerging cinema market at CinemaCon in 2019. And then, of course, in 2019, we also had pre-pandemic revenues. And then 2019 as well, towards the end to 2020, the first film fund of $1 million was raised by a combination of Film One, Huawa Media, and Empire Entertainment out of South Africa. And 2022, first foreign studio premiere in Nigeria with the premiere of Wakanda Forever. So those are historical information for you to have. Next slide, please. Next slide. So, the pandemic effects on the cinema. I think we're now coming towards the lows that we've seen. A lot of those things that we expressed before are the highs. The lows. We had cinema closure for almost 7 months in 2020. Unlike other parts of the world where you would have had some kind of resuscitation plan, some kind of palliative as they call it, the cinema industry had no intervention whatsoever. Cinemas were closed. Stock was lost, equipment failed, rent started piling up, and it became really, really tough. Financial challenges as well, happened. But despite that, the resilience of the cinema sector, in that same year, we recorded the highest grossing and one of the highest number of tickets sold with Omogeto the Saga, selling over 400,000 tickets between December 2020 and March 2021. Next slide. Okay. So again, we also with the with even with the pandemic issues, we had a number of highlights, and some of them are we got the first biopic to be released in cinemas commercially, Ayinla, and you've seen Ayinla has kind of paved the way for other biopics. Ayinla was released by Film One, and we've had a success with Funmilayo Ransom Kuti in the last few months. So we had that first record with Ayinla in 2021. In 2022, new genres have emerged. In 2022, we had King of Thieves, which was the first epic to gross the amount of money it did, 322 million, I believe. And then we also had Brotherhood, distributed by Genesis, which grossed over 300 and I think 25 million in that year. So 2022 set the tone, despite the pandemic, despite all the issues. Those happened. I'm now really looking to rush and finish in the next 3-4 slides. Let's move to the lows, the challenges faced. Next slide. So, yes, we've had those highs, we've had the challenges. We're being challenged with the return of a number of people to cinema. Cinema is still being, patronized and doing well. This year will be a record-breaking year in terms of the Naira and Kobo. But in terms of the number of admissions, that's where we're really working hard, and we all need to work hard together. And I am speaking to filmmakers and stakeholders, because a number of us are also aware of the fact that there's a squeeze with the streamers and the other source of revenues that we've all become kind of dependent on. But cinema kind of seems to be the one that is resilient and continues to do well. We need to work hard at getting more people to come to cinema. We also need to work hard at ensuring that they see the right kind of quality content that they believe is value for their money. Delayed commercial viability for Nollywood films, and then challenges of 35mm film exhibition in early Nollywood cinemas. So we had talked about that. Next, please. What lows have we also gone through? Between 2015 and 2016, currency devaluation happened. Content supply was also affected. We had a studio stop supplying for a while. And then, of course, real estate challenges, because real estate is also priced in dollars. So we've had those challenges in the past. Next slide. So other challenges that we've also had to face in the cinema sector include adverse weather. As you know, when it rains, it floods, it affects cinema attendance. A lot of people sometimes do not factor that in. Sporting events would affect cinema attendance. Student strikes has affected cinema attendance. And indeed, with the streaming wars, that means consumer behavior has also changed over time. Of course, we shouldn't forget the pandemic, which we've mentioned, and we shouldn't forget the other economic factors like the war in Russia and Ukraine that led to inflation, for energy prices across. All of these things have had an impact. Next slide. Of course, the elephant in the room, streaming has had an impact one way or the other, whether we like it or not. We still believe it remains complementary to cinema business, but we've seen a number of big blockbusters go directly to streaming, with streaming perceived as very, very affordable compared to average ticket prices or per ticket price. That has been tough for the cinema industry. What does the future hold in 2 quick slides? Next slide. So, we think that there are emerging trends that support the fact that cinema is going to grow. Last year, we did 7.34 billion in cinema tickets sales. We believe that this year will be 10 billion. We believe that next year will continue to grow. We expect to have the first cinema admissions growth in the first time in 3 years for that to happen this year. We think that technology is going to play a huge role with cinemas. We anticipate more collaborations between filmmakers for the cinema industry. And the very, very last slide before I leave and exit here for the next speaker. Last slide. So we think that there will be different types of cinema. Right now, we have the mainstream cinemas that are what we're used to, that has all the different technology offerings. We think and we believe that there needs to be a cinema business or operation for the lower tier. We think that there is business for the higher tier as well. So we expect that diverse cinema offering to be what will sustain cinema in the future. We think Nollywood box office would get a higher share of the total box office in 2025. And we believe that big IPs will be the main staple. So expect to see Omogeto 2, expect to see Merry Men 5, expect to see IP being exploited. Yeah, expect to see Jennifer 4. Those are the big, we believe that the big tempo films are the ones that will be the order of the day. Very mindful of all the things we've had to take, information overload. I hope that if nothing at all, there's been some useful information about the dynamism, about the resilience, about the importance of the cinema sector in 2 decades. This is paying tribute to the results that have been achieved, but also hoping that the next 2 decades will be even more successful for all of us involved. Thank you.